something of a reunion between me and Jared Carrabis. I think, what year was it? Was it about a decade ago that we met in Boston?
Over that now at this point. It was 2009, which, I mean, that's a long time because we're talking about the last time the Yankees won a World Series at this point. It was a long time ago. So it was 2009 at the Baseball Tavern, which doesn't exist. I'm actually like sitting pretty close to where the Baseball Tavern used to be. But yeah, it was like the sports blogapalooza. We were on like a panel together. I actually have like a weird memory. Like I can remember details about literally everything. It's very strange.
And I have no memory, which is why you're so much more successful than I am, and such a steal for DraftKings for them to bring you into the fold. Your podcast is fantastic. Baseball is Dead. Congratulations on the early success. Just a couple episodes out. I think maybe you just got done taping your 5th episode of this thing, and already people are flocking to it. Why do you think fans want to pronounce baseball dead so badly?
That's an interesting question. I feel like the people that say baseball is dead, I feel like are just championing for their sport. Instead of hyping up their sport, they would rather put down baseball. And maybe it's because baseball was crowned as the national pastime, which we can all acknowledge, like football is king. Like no one's trying to say that the NFL isn't number one. It is. That's fine. But baseball could be a very strong number 2. Like it competes with the NBA. People have been saying like soccer is the sport of the future for like 30 years now. Like soccer is never going to eclipse baseball in the United States. In the world, it's the most popular sport in the world, but for whatever reason in the United States, it's not one of the big 4. So yeah, I think maybe it is just like an inferiority complex where baseball gets the nod as like the national pastime. So it's like we got to put it down to prop up our sport.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I was at Mets opening day, and as we just noted, I covered the Red Sox for a long time. We know how rabid that fan base is. You're a proud Red Sox fan. I feel like there is a younger generation of fans who is still really actively engaged in this sport. I think your numbers on your podcast even prove that. I mean, my parents don't even know how to find a podcast, so I'm assuming that means that there's a younger generation that's following you and your takes. I mean, do you find that to be true, that the fan base is alive and well?
Yeah, I think people keep throwing around this number where it's like, oh yeah, the average age of a baseball fan is like 56 years old. And it's like, all right, if you go to like a ballpark, how many 56 and up year olds are you seeing? Like, there's not a lot. Just go to a baseball stadium and you're going to see like, yeah, there's father sons, father daughters, mother sons, whatever. But it's generally a younger crowd now. And I guess the example or like the litmus test would be like the social media numbers. Do you think that 56-year-olds are just scrolling Twitter being like, retweet, share, quote, tweet? Like, no, like those are young people that are engaging with baseball content. So Baseball is Dead is Dallas Braden and myself. We did Starting 9 together. And then my favorite baseball YouTuber, it's a channel called Baseball Doesn't Exist. And I brought him, he's never podcasted before. He just does YouTube, and he's got like hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And I was like, yeah, dude, if you want to talk baseball with us, like I'm a fan of you, like you're a fan of the podcast, like let's do this together. So yeah, like you can't have like a guy like John Boy, millions of like subscribers on YouTube, and he's predominantly a baseball content company. So I mean, the audience is out there. It's just a matter of reaching these people.
One of the things that people who I think are maybe ignorant to the sport, who want to just kind of get on the sport and say like, oh, it's dead, they always talk about the duration of the games. And in the minors, we're seeing this pitch clock that is shaved about 20 minutes off a game, but so far with a very small data base has managed to kind of keep the scoring intact. And now there's, a lot of talk about bringing that into the major leagues for 2023. Would you like to see a pitch clock in Major League Baseball like that?
So I could admit, even as being like one of the biggest baseball fans in the world, I don't know if you've seen my TV setup. This is a little bit of a flex and a humble brag here, but in my living room, I have 9 TVs on the wall. So I have on a nightly basis 9 baseball games going at the same time. So I guess my brain doesn't process the time in between action, because I guess like that's the biggest complaint about baseball. Baseball is boring. It's like, all right, yeah, the guy might get like throw a pitch and he might not throw another one for 18 seconds, or the strikeouts are up, so there might not be a ball put in play for 20 minutes or something like that. for me, my viewing experience is different because if something isn't happening in the game that I'm watching, I can just look at another game, which is not your average baseball viewing experience. But for me personally, I don't have any complaints because I don't know what waiting for action really means. So for the pitch clock, yeah, I mean, if it works, it works. It's great. Like I feel like I'm not one of those traditionalists where I was pro universal DH, and I know that National League fans were like, well, it's about tradition and strategy. Like now we're not going to have the double switch and figuring out if we're going to pull a pitcher if they have a good game going, but we need an extra run, something like that. So when it comes to the pitch clock, you know, you'll talk to pitchers and they'll say, well, yeah, like, of course I could deliver a pitch faster. It's not a stamina thing. If there's a hitter at the plate and I'm trying to disrupt their timing, I might hold the baseball a little bit longer. Or if there's a runner on first and I think they might be going, I might hold the baseball a little bit longer because now he might stutter step and he might not try to steal second base on me, which is an advantage for us. So yeah, I can appreciate the strategy behind guys taking a little bit longer to throw the baseball. But if you're a casual fan, you're not thinking about the game within the game. You're just like, all right, someone hit the ball so that I can see like a diving catch, or I can see a home run or a ball in the gap. I want to see the runners running around the bases. Like they're not thinking about the strategy that would go behind a little bit of a delay in the game and what that means.
I don't mind it for the future of gambling either, because I feel like baseball is a really betting friendly sport, especially for a new person to the sport, to have that time in between innings, to shorten it down to 5 innings if they want and take all the other stuff off the equation if they want to get into that side of the sport. If they're not a baseball alien that is single-handedly keeping PC Richards and Best Buy in business like you happen to be, right, with a dozen televisions on your wall. You and I both have worked in the Boston market. We met in the Boston market. I came in to cover the Red Sox over 10 years ago now at this point, and it was like the fried chicken starting rotation. I saw Bobby Valentine come through there and just completely stir it up. The end of Tito, Euclid was there. It was a magnificent time to kind of be around. I was there for the epic collapse that the organization went through, but I do remember just the characters that are around the clubhouse, like the old curmudgeon-y baseball writers, and also Jerry Remy, who was so good to me and nice to everyone. And so to see him kind of be honored at Fenway Park, I mean, what resonated with you about that?
Yeah, so I had the unique experience. I was in the Nesson suite, so I was with a lot of people that work directly with Jerry. I mean, I had a relationship with Jerry, but I never got to work with him, unfortunately. So I kind of got to like take in that ceremony by myself, which was nice. Like I knew I was probably going to get like a little bit like emotional watching the actual ceremony, but then having everyone who was on the field for the ceremony come back and like hearing all these like stories and these memories of Jerry, it was, it's kind of how like wakes turn out, where it's like it's sad in the beginning and then everyone that like loved that person, they kind of gather around and then you start to see smiles and laughs because people are sharing memories of that person. So that was the experience that I kind of had, and it was cool to see, all like the sideline reporters. Like I don't think they've ever been in a room together before. It was like Jenny Dell, Heidi Watney, Tina Servacio, Garen Austin, Gary Streisky, Eric Freed, like all these dudes, and like all like the sideline reporters kind of sharing similar like stories of like, he always treated me great. He always wanted me to feel included, always put a smile on my face. Whether the camera was on, the camera was off, he was like a bright light, someone that wanted to brighten your day. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, it was really cool to just kind of essentially be a fly on the wall for all these like Jerry Remy stories that were being shared by firsthand accounts.
And then there was one prominent voice that was missing in all of this, which was Don Orsillo. What do you make of his absence in the ceremony? I know he issued a statement that said that he really would have loved to contribute, and it seemed like it just got muddled somewhere along the way. I mean, what have you gathered about why he wasn't a part of it?
So I saw Chad Finn's tweet where he said it sounds like a really unfortunate miscommunication. And the reaction to that was like, there is no miscommunication. The Red Sox just handled this poorly. I think both sides of it like could have been handled better. if what everything has been put out there is to be believed as a fact, he was invited and he didn't want to go. And I totally side with like Don on that if that's how he feels, because no one has ever been given a more of a raw deal undeservedly than Don Orsillo as the broadcaster of the Boston Red Sox. He never should have left. The way that he was treated on the way out never should have happened. There's probably a lot of bitterness still there on Don's side of things that I totally understand. There's probably, well, I know that there are people there that he doesn't want to run into and see. So when he was given the option to record a video, he wanted to do that. And then it kind of sounds like the Red Sox were like, I don't know if the video part actually fits in this ceremony. And it did. I mean, if you watch the ceremony, like you had like Sean McDonough had talked for like 7 minutes, and it was great. It was a beautiful speech. But then you had TC come in and like cap it off. Why couldn't you? I was waiting. That was my first tweet, was the whole time I'm sitting there. It's like, all right, cool, speech. And then I'm looking up at the video board. Before you go to TC to wrap it up, why couldn't you have played a video from Don Orsillo? The crowd would have went nuts. People would have been like, thank you. Like how, because yeah, they included like bits and pieces of Don with Jerry in the tribute video, but not enough. I mean, like that's what we remember, right? Like as Red Sox fans, we remember the Don and Jerry moments. There were no really notable Don and Jerry and Dave moments. There weren't a ton of those. And I think that Dave's a good broadcaster, but in terms of like the memories that stick with us, those were Don memories. So to not even give him the opportunity to have his video included, that was wrong. It felt wrong. Like, you know, you can say that Don was wrong for not going. That's his choice. If he doesn't feel comfortable going, I think that we can all relate to that. We can, you know, you don't want to be around people where this is awkward. Like you're mourning the loss of your friend, and now you have to like share space with people that kind of did you dirty at the same time. Like that can be uncomfortable. So I get why he didn't go, but to say that there was no place for a video is wildly incorrect. Like there was a place for it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you're so spot on. I mean, with how brilliant that pairing was, the chemistry they had, the funny moments that they had, the crowd would have gone insane if he would have been able to just tell a funny story or punctuate it and then bring TC in at the end. Like you said, I think that would have been actually the perfect way to cap it off. So instead of like pointing the finger one way or the other, I just feel like really sad about it all, because I feel like it's such a missed opportunity to kind of like put a really beautiful period at the end of what was a really nice dedication. I want to kind of go around the league a little bit, so I don't want to spend too much time in Boston, but I do have my favorite personal Red Sox memory was actually of David Ortiz. I came in, I had never worked a major league clubhouse before. So to come into like the Red Sox clubhouse was very intimidating for me, to say the least. And I walked in on my first day as like a complete rookie. And everybody was crowded around Ortiz's locker, and he parted the seas and was like, "Hey girl, what's up?" He picked me up and like threw me over his shoulder. I was like, "How you doing?" Whatever. I had never met him before. I had never met anybody in the clubhouse before. And I was just like along for the ride. And afterwards I was like, you know, Mr. Ortiz, I was like a 20 something, whatever. And I was like, you know, my name's Carolyn Manno. I think there might've been, and he's like, "What? You're not Wendy Nix?" "Oh, I thought you were Wendy." He thought I was Wendy Nix.
I was going to say, that's a little bit of a strong reaction for someone you had never met before.
Yeah, who covered the team for such a long time. But to see, you know, all the guys who have been around forever working the Red Sox clubhouse be like, who is this like, you know, sleazy blonde girl who's probably like been around with all these guys? I had to like individually apologize to everybody after and be like, that was a miscommunication.
Oh my God. Have you told that story before?
I haven't told that story before. I mean, the guys who were there, you know, the guys like the veterans in the locker room, the writers, Sean McAdams and who else? I mean, I'm sure Chad Finn was in there, like all those guys who've been around forever. But anyway, it's just, I have really good memories of there, and like sitting at, you know, where the table where the guys play chess in the clubhouse, not knowing that that's something that you are 1,000% like not allowed to do, just making all the mistakes that like a young reporter makes in a clubhouse like that. Because baseball, as you know, has its own vibe. The clubhouses are, they're members only for sure. And you kind of have to like really know how to finesse your way around those. But I have a lot of great memories of my time there. Just getting back to kind of what you're doing now, which is 30,000 foot view with DraftKings and looking at the league as a whole. I mean, right now, if you look at what DraftKings is predicting, it kind of stands to reason that they're pointing towards Toronto and LA being there at the end. At least that's what the odds seem to indicate right now. And you can see why when you look at their rosters and who they have. I mean, are you in agreement that right now, at least as we kind of get into the meat of the season, that those two teams are the top two teams in the league?
Yeah, so I think with the Dodgers, it's almost like you're not allowed to join the team unless you have an MVP on your mantle. It's very strange how if they've figured out this formula of, we're just going to collect MVPs and see how that works out. And it usually works out pretty great for them. The Dodgers are far and away the best team in the National League, but I think that there are parallels to last season in the American League where it's kind of up for grabs. I think the Toronto Blue Jays are a very good team. I think that they should be the favorite to win the American League East, but I think we're seeing some holes early on. I mean, it's very hard to kind of gauge what a team is capable of through the first 2.5 weeks of the season. But I mean, they didn't come out of the gates red hot. I mean, there's still time for that to turn around. There's still time for them to make additions if they see fit. But in terms of like the Houston Astros being what they were last year, losing Carlos Correa, there's no Dodger equivalent in the American League. So I don't think that I can confidently say like, hey, we're strap it in. Like we're going to get a Dodgers Blue Jays World Series this year. I do think that it is LA's pennant to lose in the National League, but I don't think we can say right now that it's the Blue Jays pennant to lose in the American League.
Do the Mets fans have reason to be, cautiously optimistic? Are they, a team that you see having a really deep postseason run?
Yeah. So I think with the Mets, you have a team that made some really key additions in the offseason and haven't really been able to unleash any of them yet. And they also are performing well without them right now. So you're looking at a team that's really good, that has been performing out of the gate, that hasn't even really gotten it going with the group that was intended to be in 2022. And they're in one of the most enviable positions in baseball because they spent a ton of money. They have a roster that's ready to win right now, but still all the focus is on the Dodgers because the Dodgers been there. They've done that. They also went out and added again, which they do every year, which is you have to love that about an organization that can draft, develop, sign free agents. Even after coming off a World Series title, they spent a ton of money on Trevor Bauer, which obviously didn't work out. And then it's like, all right, well, let's spend a ton of money on Freddie Freeman. Let's add a first baseman that's an MVP. They just every single year, it's like, we're awesome. Let's be even more awesome. And so I guess, you look at the Mets who have the best pitcher on planet Earth in Jacob deGrom, and then they go out and sign Max Scherzer $40 million a year. And then they also add in some other little complementary pieces that I think go under the radar, but still make them a better team. And no one even still is talking about the Mets as a World Series or bust team. So they're in an awesome spot where they're capable of winning a World Series, but because the Dodgers exist, no one's saying World Series or bust for the Mets.
I like the addition of Buck Showalter actually maybe the best. I mean, he seems like he's an adult in the room that has kind of like pulled everybody together, and it feels like the fan base is responding to him as well.
So you mentioned it earlier. I think Buck Showalter to the Mets in 2022 is what the Red Sox wished or hoped that Bobby Valentine would have been in 2012. It's like, all right, we're bringing in this old school guy, but he's loose and he's goofy. So it's like, he has those old school mentalities, but he'll keep a loose environment when really it was just with it. I mean, it took maybe, I don't know, less than 2 weeks for all hell to break loose in that clubhouse and it just never recovered. But Buck Showalter is one of those guys where he's like the cool uncle where it's like, yeah, you've been there, you've done that, you have experiences and you know how baseball is played from an old school perspective. But I think the fact that Max Scherzer was so adamant about adding him was an extension of Max. Like, we're not getting this old school disciplinarian manager coming into our space. If Max Scherzer is coming over here and he's like, I want Buck Showalter, then everyone else is like, I guess I want Buck Showalter too, because I'm afraid of Max Scherzer.
Just a couple more before we let you go, because I know I've kept you too long already, but I know the latest episode of your podcast that I just listened to towards the end, and this is as of this taping on Thursday, will not be the most recent episode, but the last one that I could get, you guys had a really interesting conversation at the end about baseball's being deadened and how, home run counts overall are kind of down, and what that, I was curious about what that might mean for a baseball bettor moving forward, how that kind of affects everything of what we're seeing with humidifiers being added. What is your kind of take on what we're seeing with those balls being slowed down, I guess, if that's the right way to describe it?
So the way that it was kind of explained to me was that it's a mixed bag where they're using baseballs from 2019, 2020, and 2021, where it was like, all right, let's juice the baseballs, let's deaden the baseballs, let's juice them again. And then taking all 3 years and then putting them into almost like a gumball machine where you don't know which one's going to come out. So I guess that's their solution to, all right, we juice the balls and we just hit more home runs than at any point in the steroid era. So like, that's a little bit much. And then you deaden them and it's like, oh, now there's conspiracy theorists that think that we're deadening the baseballs because there's this shortstop free agency class and we're trying to deaden the baseballs so that they don't get paid as much. And it's this big conspiracy to bring payrolls down to now where it's like, yeah, we'll throw in some juice ones, we'll throw in some dead ones, and we'll see how it goes. So baseball in itself, I think, is the most difficult sport to bet on. It's so wildly unpredictable. Like in the NFL, if you have one of the top teams in the league play one of the worst teams in the league, the best team is probably going to win that game. Like it's almost impossible to bet on a game like that because there's no value there. But with baseball, if the Pittsburgh Pirates play a 4-game series against the Dodgers and they happen to win a game, it's not like, oh my God, the Pittsburgh Pirates beat the Dodgers. How could this happen? So it's one of those where, it just adds even another layer of unpredictability to a sport that is already very unpredictable.
Yeah, I remember we just saw the Orioles take the Yankees to extras in like a god-awful game that lasted for 6 hours. And I was just sitting at work being like, what the hell is happening right now? It is a little bit unpredictable, but I also feel like it's fan-friendly as well, because statistically, if you're a gambling nerd or like a numbers nerd, I feel like baseball's perfect for you. Okay, before I let you go, just can you give me one kind of dark horse sleeper team that's not among like top 3, top 5 in the AL and NL that we were just talking about that you feel like might surprise people and sneak into October?
So I've got the Guardians. Right now they're playing really well, and they're a team that offensively can surprise some people. They have a few guys that I don't want to call them no names, but guys that weren't expected to do a ton that I think are capable of doing more than what's expected. And I just feel like that organization always finds a way, every time that they have some sort of fire sale where it's like, all right, we're going to ship Clevenger to San Diego and we're going to ship Carrasco to the Mets. And like, they'll have all these guys. They've traded Bauer to the Reds. They just find a way to plug and play. And if there's one team that I think folks have written off because of the payroll, everyone just automatically looks at payroll and it's like, well, if you don't spend a lot of money, then you're not going to win baseball games. I think Cleveland in the last decade has proven to be a great outlier of that logic, where you don't have to spend the big bucks. That organization just has a way of developing talent that other organizations are very envious of.
Jared, I kept you too long. I appreciate the time.
Not at all.
Best of luck to you. Honestly, congratulations to all your success. I hope we get to meet each other in person again soon, more than a decade later,
yes,
after our time in Boston. But congratulations with the podcast and everything else. You're absolutely killing it.
Thank you so much. Next time, if you're over in Boston, the Fenway area, I actually live in the neighborhood. We should do a game. We can catch up and we can do the whole thing.
Okay. All right. Great. Jared, thanks.
Thank you so much.